All right. Hello, everyone. This is Mark Bentley. We're doing the second Institute of Nonprofit Event Training webinar here in the midst of social distancing and COVID-19. This webinar is how to do an online auction. Um, we're going to talk about some specifics, some do's and don'ts, and some helpful tips that I've found. And then at the end, would love to answer your questions. Um, Real quick, as we get started, a little bit about me. I've been working with nonprofits consulting for about 8 years. We started the Institute of NET, or Institute of Nonprofit Event Training, January of 2019 as a way as a 501c3 to help other 501c3s be more effective in their events and as a result be able to raise more money. We work to raise funds ourselves to help support the needed nonprofits that we work with. We do three things. We do free classes for nonprofits. In the midst of the social distancing, we've offered those classes here in an online format and will continue to do so as the weeks and months progress and all the way till life gets back to normal. Our hope is to continue to add experience and information that we have to help the nonprofits that we exist to serve so they can be more efficient and as a result more effective. When we do classes again, we'll continue those in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, in Nashville, Tennessee, and hope to start soon in Boston, Massachusetts. We also do consulting. We are a firm believer that there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. So a lot of this stuff is very high level, and we hope to be able to offer some one-on-one consulting to better serve you and your organization as you guys continue to make an impact in the communities you serve. And the final thing we offer is event planning. This is a way that we can both offer education and training as well as hopefully some manpower and capacity, which we know is a great need for nonprofits as well. For those of you who joined our last and our first webinar, we were hopeful but not surprised we had technical difficulties. We used a different service, and unfortunately during this time they had a lot more people using their service than usual, and I think their server could not handle it. So the last few minutes of that were cut out. If you haven't had a chance yet, please go to our website. You'll be able to click on the drop-down menu and you'll see a section that's called webinars. You can go there to see it. We've added the last 15 minutes. I really think these give at least 5 ideas that we've come up with on how you can raise money in lieu of your fundraising event. Again, we really think this is very helpful. If you need to, just skip to the last 15 minutes or so of the video to be able to catch that part. We've also wrote some blogs. This one as well, we've created a blog on how to do an online auction. So if you'd like to see kind of the notes and the script from this, go to our website. Again, the drop-down menu, select the blog, and you'll be able to see that. Using this new service and about this webinar, we love questions. So the hope is that we'll be able to run through the ideas and thoughts that we have, and then after that, answer any questions that you have as well. Outside of the Q&A that we do here, if you have more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out on our website, and we would love to touch base with you again in a one-on-one format and just be able to serve you and your organization where you guys are at. With that, you can raise your hand in the middle if you have a question that's more immediate. I ask that you wait on that unless it's something that you really think is going to be valuable for everyone to hear, and then we would love for you to be able to use that feature. Another great feature is the Q&A feature. You can ask a question, I'll see it pop up on my screen, and then I'll get to that as soon as I can, either in the midst of what I'm talking about, or I may decide to save that a little bit later on and come back to that. But that's a great place for me to be able to answer any questions that you have, both for those of you watching live, and then in the recorded version, any questions you have, please, again, do not hesitate to reach out via the website. Send me an email, and we would love to be able to work with you and the work that you guys are doing with your nonprofits. All right, so let's dive in straight then to the webinar. We're going to talk about, again, an online auction. Some of you may have done an online auction before. You may have done a silent auction in person at a live event, or you may have been able to do a little bit of both. So we've done this many times with a lot of different clients where we've had a auction that we've done that started out as an online auction, and then it moved into a silent and then a live auction at a physically present event. And so there's some great tools and services out there. So before we get into talking about an online auction, we thought it'd be a helpful place to start to discuss what an online auction is not. And as you continue to listen to these webinars, for those of you that have worked with me, this first point will not surprise you. The first point is we talk about online auctions are not a substitute for a development plan. Online auctions have many valuable traits to help with fundraising. However, beware that an online auction does not replace development. So they can be very transactional. They can be helpful in being able to bring in funds that maybe you wouldn't have naturally gotten in other ways. But development is still about knowing your donors, developing a relationship with them, and who you are in your organization. So if you go the route of an online auction, still come up with some other plans and strategies on how to be able to offer a development strategy that's going to be effective as well. The second thing that online auction is not is that it is not a substitute for donor engagement for annual gifts. So this is something that I think is a key point that I see a lot of nonprofits make a mistake on. And when you think about online auctions, just know that online auctions are not a substitute for donor engagement or their annual gifts. We believe that if someone is giving to your organization on a regular basis, the last thing we want is for you to be able to take that annual gift and then apply it to this auction, which then usually means that you're not going to receive 100% margin or 100% of your revenue. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but I think it's a good point to realize that an online auction is not a substitute for someone that's an annual donor to be able to make their annual gift. And the way that we can make sure that happens is being strategic in the way that we communicate and that we engage our donors about this auction and about their annual gifts. And this is the same for monthly donors as well. The final thing about online auction is that it's not low maintenance. So we don't want this to scare you away. They're worth doing. They're not terribly difficult to do, but they do take time and attention. Attention to detail and anything in the event space, anything in the fundraising and development space is very crucial. So we wanted to make sure that we noted this point that an online auction is not a low maintenance option. So have healthy expectations as you jump in and make sure that you've got the capacity and the resources to be able to apply to make the auction a success. Otherwise, like so many that we've seen, it can just turn to be a flop or just have mediocre results, which is of course not what we want if you're going to be able to put the time and effort into it. All right, so let's move past that. Now that what we know an online auction is not, and let's talk about how to do a successful online auction. One of the first things that you need to do is you must choose the correct platform. Here at the end, what we're going to do is talk about one platform particularly that we've used, but there's so many platforms out there. Every nonprofit, as we continually talk about, has so many different needs and so many different characteristics. And the nice thing is that there's a lot of platforms out there that tailor and are more specific to different events and different nonprofits. Unfortunately, that means there's a lot to be able to shift through. So on our website, on the blog that we wrote in regards to doing an online auction, we have a list that we've connected to another website that has a great list of online platforms that we agree with. Some of those we've used. And then there's another one specifically that we're going to talk about here at the end. And I'm actually going to show you a demo on what that would look like in the platform and why we thought this might be a good consideration for those of you on this call and those that you may watch this video later. The other thing about choosing the correct platform is make sure you pay attention from a price structure because they all seem to charge in a very different manner. So sometimes it can be tricky to compare pricing. It almost feels like you're comparing apples to oranges. Some will charge on a flat rate. Some will charge based on the amount of items you have. Some's a yearly plan or per event. Others have a lower base rate, but then they'll charge a percentage of the revenue or a percentage of the total amount of items. So again, there's a lot of different ways to be able to calculate that. So if your auction's only going to have 30 items, then paying a one-time fee may not be as valuable for you as paying a per item fee. Vice versa, if you have 100 items, you may have a better value going with a platform that just charges you a one-time event or annual fee versus having to pay per item. So the second point on how to do a successful online auction is you must identify your audience. This is where I really see a lot of nonprofits miss the mark or not take the time to make happen. And the reason is because if we're creating an auction, we're obviously getting a lot of different items and materials, and we want to make sure that those items are going to be attractive to those that are attending the auction. So it seems somewhat straightforward. An example, a female specific audience may not love the idea of all sorts of, sporting goods or golf clubs or things along those lines, versus a male specific audience may not love the gift card to the women's boutique. Obviously there can be some cross on either one of those, but just generally knowing how, society and knowing your audience and your demographic and their interests and their engagements, keep that in mind as you be able to create and put together this auction. And the first step of doing that is you must identify who is your audience. Are they a younger crowd? Are they going to be an older crowd? Are they more on the about experiences and trips, or do they like more tangible items and retail and things of that nature? Maybe they're foodies, maybe they like gift cards, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's not alcohol. So think through all those things with your audience first and foremost. And that will be really helpful as you continue, as we go down these next steps, and being able to get your items. So number 3 is get the items. So once you've identified who your audience is, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out what kind of items that you want to get. Now, the first place to start to get items is, of course, donations. As many as you can get donated and have 100% margin, obviously the better it's going to pan out for you. Now, the problem that I see with a lot of nonprofits is too often they only go after the things they can get donated. And the result is we have a hodgepodge of just random donated items. Some items honestly aren't even that attractive for anyone. Other items may not fit their target or their audience well. And so what we always suggest is looking at around 40 items for an auction. We think that's a great number to make it really feel like it's a full auction. You can always have more. I'd be careful with doing too much depending on the size of your audience. That's another thing to consider, because then you're going to spread thin across all the items. But usually 40 at least, and then up to 60 to 70 could be a great benchmark on the amount of items to be able to get. And so with that, if you're getting things donated, it's tough to get 40 items donated. And so we see where a lot of items can consistently just be really random. And so what we ask is that you consider, on top of your audience, thinking of different categories to get for your items. So as you go out and you ask for those donations, try to think of 5 to 7 different categories that your audience would like. So this could be things from trips to experiences to gift cards to female items to male items to retail. So just think of all those sports memorabilia, various celebrity signed items that you see in auctions. Think of those categories, identify the categories that your audience would like, and then try to get 5 to 7 items, or, proportionally divide out however many items per category that you think that you should get in each of those categories. And so we found this is, again, very helpful in thinking through how best to be able to create diversity within your auction, and how to get as much audience participation on those items, which is the ultimate goal. Ultimately, is the more people that you can have bidding on your items, the odds are the higher the pricing will go and the more money you'll make. So being able to divide out those categories, I've had some items, auctions early on that we just did what we got donated, and we got a ton of sports things donated. We had some professional athletes that were part of the charity. So they were able to get a lot of sports items donated and sign things from their friends. And one thing that we found doing this is that women are much more likely to engage in auctions than men are. And so we made the mistake by getting most items that are specific for men, when really it was their wives and the women that were going after and bidding on items. So really consider that. The other thing, in an online auction, this isn't as important, obviously, but I'm gonna mention it anyway. For if you take some of these principles and apply them to a live or a silent auction that's at an event in person after we end the social distancing, is try to make sure both him and her are at the event. If just one or the other is there, the odds are they're not going to bid nearly as much because they're probably going to ask for approval. Auctions are about emotional. They're about the impulse buy. And so you want to make sure that they have the approval from their spouse to be able to buy that auction or go to that price. So the more that you can get both him and her in the room, the more likely your auction is going to do better. I've seen a lot of golf tournaments that have auctions before the golf, and this is a great example where I just don't think those do as well because, again, usually it's just one of either him or her is at the golf tournament. Usually they both aren't there. And so they're not going to be as likely to bid on things. And golf tournaments tend to be more male specific. And so if you have a male dominant crowd, again, women are the ones that really participate in auctions much more than men. So things like that to keep in mind as you're doing your event. And also we'll talk about here in a second in your marketing. So as you market this auction out being an online auction, consider how can you get this out to your audience, and who is your audience that you're trying to participate in this online auction. So again, getting the items donated, that's a great place to start. Consider the categories, consider some variety. But let's say you can't get the items donated. How do you continue to do an auction? Well, there's services out there, and the odds are if you're in the nonprofit space, you've probably been solicited by them. They do a good job of marketing and trying to get their name out, that do charity auctions. And essentially what they do is they have a whole lot of items that they will give you at what they consider consignment. And so what that essentially means is that they'll let you use their items to put in your auction. And if the item doesn't have any bids, if it doesn't sell in the auction, no cost to you. You give the item back, and there's no liability there. If the item does sell, though, then they'll send you a bill for essentially like the wholesale price of the item. Now, these companies, what a lot of them they do, they have a few retail items. I've seen some that'll have jewelry or really, really random stuff. But usually there are a lot of pictures, signs, sports memorabilia. They do trips, they do experiences. So they try to offer the things that you can't just go and get donated. My rule of thumb is I try to stay clear of these because, to be honest, you really don't make that much. If you go this route with these items, you can make a lot more getting things donated. It takes more time, but it's worth it. But what I do like to do after I try to get as much as I can donated, then I'll go to the consignment side, look at my categories and figure out where am I missing, what am I weak on. And then out of 40 items, I may get 5 to 7 of those in consignment. And overall, the auction, it makes it look more full. It makes it look stronger. But the majority of the items I have really good margins on. So even if those 5 to 7 items sell and I don't make as much on those, I'm making it up with the margins on the other items that we have donated. So that's an option to do. During this day and age with COVID-19, getting things donated is going to be more challenging than ever. So, you may need to go the consignment route, and that's okay if you do. One final idea that I have specifically to COVID-19, and this works some for us and other times as well, is go to restaurants and go to retails, small boutiques and your local retail stores, and see if you can get items from them on consignment. So let them know what you're doing. Let them know about the online auction. and just say, are there 10 items that I could get from you that if they sell, I'll pay you wholesale on, and if not, then no liability to us. And the value of that is this allows you to be able to get some items, but it also helps them in this time where they're struggling greatly with cash flow to liquidate some of their inventory. So I really think this could be a win-win. I haven't tried this before in regards to specifically with the COVID-19, but we have had some events here in the Raleigh area the last few years where we've had a local boutique that essentially she knew the event was coming up in a few months, and she just went ahead and with her suppliers ordered a few more, about 10 to 15 items. That's a very popular women's boutique here in the area. So the women who came to our event were very excited about it. They felt like they're shopping in the store, and it was a win-win because it was great marketing for this boutique. It was a way for them to be able to show their support really at no cost, because we were being able to pay her for the items that she paid for them anyway. And the one thing to consider with the consignment items is if you go this route, make sure your starting bid is at least 20 to 30% above what your cost is for it. So the last thing you want is one person to bid and their bid is the only bid on it. They win the item and you essentially make nothing on the item, or even 10%. So really think about the starting and the minimum bid. And especially if you have donated items, this can encourage people to not be as excited about bidding on these consignment items. If they're a little higher price starting out, they may go and spend that money on some other things that they may consider a better value. So look at the consignment option. Look at being creative here. Reach out to some local retailers, restaurants. Same thing with the restaurants with gift cards. Ask them if they'll donate a gift card. One thing we've had a lot of success with, not just auctions, just events in general, is that a lot of retailers as well as restaurants, if you say, will you donate a $50 gift card if we buy a $50 gift card, I've had much better luck with that than just going and asking for a $50 gift card. So, maybe you come back with two $50 gift cards or one $100 gift card. You have 50% margin on it, but you can get 100% of the value. So you make that 50% back up for the gift card. Then, that's another way to do it as well. Okay, so that's a way you can get the items for these auctions. The final way to do a successful online auction, and the fourth point, is market your auction well. Marketing is so crucial to making sure you get the right audience there, and your ultimate goal, if you're trying to get items to have the highest value bid on them, is to get as many people as you can bidding. It just, the statistics, it just makes sense where if you have 40 items and you only have 40 people participating, the odds are you're going to have a lot of items that won't sell. But if you can have 400 people participating, not only will you have items that'll sell, but I bet you each item will have 5 to 10 bids on it, which means, anywhere from a $5 to a $50 increment or even more that can go up. So really think through on how you can engage your audience, and think not just about engaging your audience, but how can you engage the people that your audience knows. So this goes back to the point earlier that I made, that this is not your time to go and reach for your annual gift. So as you market your auction, don't just think about how can I get my current donors and our current supporters that already give to us on a monthly or a yearly basis to be able to participate in the auction, because you're getting their funds anyway. Now, it's not a bad idea because some of these people will give above and beyond their annual gift. And this goes back to, again, how you communicate with them. So when you market your auction, make sure that you engage them and try to get them to think of this as a way that they're giving to your organization above and beyond that annual check that they'll write anyway. Let's say you have a trip that's cost you $3,500 and someone wins it for $5,000. Well, if this person gives $5,000 to you anyway, you don't want them to think that that $5,000 donation it kind of qualifies for them winning that $5,000 in the auction, because a lot of times people don't realize that you're actually having to pay for some of these items. They just assume all the items are donated. And so instead of getting a $5,000 check from this person, you're actually only getting a $1,500 check. And so again, you want to make sure you back yourself in a corner, because now you're actually losing money on your auction. And obviously we want to make sure that doesn't happen. So how you communicate to your donors, both yearly and monthly donors, is really important to make sure that you auction this well. But your donors' friends, who maybe they won't give to you naturally anyway, you don't have a relationship with them, but now you can get them, your donors, to be an ambassador to spread the word about this auction. They send out an email to some of their friends on your behalf because you taught them well on how to do that. Now you may have some action from someone that will participate in your auction and even win items in your auction that normally won't write you a check anyway. In this scenario, I don't care if you're spending 90% on the item and you're only netting 10% of that item, because the way I look at it is you're not getting that 10% anyway. So I'd rather get 10% versus 0% if it's from someone that normally wouldn't just give to your nonprofit. This is a really good option if you have some really unique items. If you have some unique experiences or access to some celebrities or Masters tickets or things like that that you can get your hands on, then you'll start to see that people aren't just participating in your auction because your auction is supporting your nonprofit, but you actually have people engaging with your auction because they actually want to win the items. And this is a great place to be, because this allows you to capture a whole different crowd and audience than your monthly and your annual givers. It looks like we got a question here from Brian. Any experience with a high dollar item such as a car or motorcycle? We had a golf cart on consignment for one of their auctions. So Brian, this is a great question, and this goes perfectly with what I was just saying, that if you can have, again, some high dollar items or some unique items, then this could be really attractive. The thing to note with these high dollar items, and I've seen cars can go for a lot, is one, you want to make sure that you're getting either the car donated or a good price for the car, because again, if you're doing it as an auction, the odds are someone's not going to pay $10,000 or even $1,000 above what they can go down to a dealership and pay for that car. So when this becomes attractive is if that person can save $10,000 on the car, but you also can make $10,000 or $15,000 on that car, then that becomes a win-win. So first and foremost, you want to make sure the item is actually at a really good price to you, if not donated. I've seen this happen before with some dealerships where they'll donate a car. So that is an option. If you do that, you really want to market it well. That's an item that you want to expand your audience, because the odds are, even though it may be a $10,000 off on a $40,000 or $50,000 car, the odds are there's not a lot of people who can just casually drop that amount of money right now on a car. So you want to make sure first and foremost that if you go with a high ticket item, that you've got the audience for it. So that goes back to our point number 2, identifying your audience. If it's a bunch of young pros and you're hoping to get $500 a piece from them, then obviously the car is not going to work. But I've seen a very high-end private school here in the area where most of the families probably have a high 6-digit figure salary and above. If they have a car auction and there's 300 people that can all afford it, then that could actually go really, really well. And I've seen it go really well. So again, consider your audience. The second thing too is with a car or a high dollar item, that may be a really good way to do a raffle in lieu of an auction. And the reason is along the same point is, now if you do a raffle and you're selling it for $100 a ticket or $50 a ticket, now there's a lot more people that couldn't just drop $30,000 to win the car in the auction that can actually come away and win the car via the raffle. And so it allows you to be able to open up your audience to a much larger group. Again, though, in the same way, you want to make sure you don't have 10 people buying a $100 raffle ticket on it. So you want to market that well. And if you think you can get in front of 1,000 people, but it's going to be a lower tax bracket type demographic, then a raffle could still work really, really well, because you may be able to make well above and beyond what you could get if you auctioned it off. So hopefully that answers that question there. So the wrapping up here, this fourth point on market your auction well is, again, no matter how great we do points 1 through 3, if we don't take the time to really make sure we have the right audience engaging with the items that we've provided, then it doesn't matter how good the items are. Using the car again as an extreme example is not going to be as successful. The final thought I have along those that we've done before, and we've had some success with it, is that we've created some incentives for people that we know to be able to engage their friends and audience, and try to get them to engage with the auction as well. So again, just increasing that audience size. And one of the ways we've done that is we've offered gift certificates to those that support the nonprofit already or already donors, or a way that if they can get 3 or 5 friends to sign up for the auction, then they get a gift certificate as well. The great thing about gift certificates is they only apply to the auction. So they go against the balance that they may owe if they win some auction items. But the reality is not everyone's going to win an auction item, even if they bid on it. So even if they have a gift certificate, 1, it doesn't mean that they're going to use it. And 2, if you price it right, let's say it's a $50 gift certificate, then that's going to be much more, you got to make sure that the value of $50 that you're taking off of their winning ticket, assuming they win something, is worth not as much as the value that they're giving you and getting their friends on board. So maybe that's not worth 1 friend to you, but maybe that's worth 3 friends or 5 friends. So figure out what that balance looks like, and then create a price structure with these gift certificates that you can give to people. Another thing that we did is we sent like a $25 gift certificate to every single annual donor. And so the idea was just a marketing ploy to get them to at least peruse the auction and look to see what the items are. Because if they feel like they've got a free $25, at the very least, they're probably going to go and look at it. And if they go and look at it, then they may actually see an item that they like. And that item may be a $1,000 item. That $25 really isn't doing much, but it got them to your site in the first place. And then from there, that allows them to really engage with your items. So think about some strategic ways to incentivize people and to market your auction, because the first step is just getting them to see the items. And then, obviously making sure you have the right audience so they actually bid on the items. All right, so that's how to do a successful online auction. The final thing we're going to talk about, just some things to consider. This is the point I was just making is, again, is the net return greater than doing the auction at all, than not doing the auction at all? So again, if you get 100 people to participate in your auction and they all give to you on an annual basis anyway, and then you do the math, you add up all the giving, and then you look at their end of the year giving, did you really actually net a significant more than if you didn't have the auction? And so you don't want this to cut into the margins of someone's annual gift and use it as an excuse, as a way to be able to give to you if they think, especially if they think that you're getting 100% of the revenue anyway, and they don't realize that you have some consignment items. So consider that, really consider who your audience is, and then consider your items as well. And make sure that, if you can't get any items donated and your average margin's only going to be 20 to 30% per item, how much time are you going to put into it? And how do you value that time? Once you consider all that time that you put into it and all the marketing capital of trying to get people to engage, again, is it really worth doing the auction in the first place? More times than not, it is. So don't let that scare you away, but I think it's a good question to at least ask as you're making this auction, to consider the greater picture, and don't just think of the net revenue from the auction, but think of who is giving that, would they give in other ways, and how much time are you putting into that as well. Along those same lines, the second point is be realistic with your expectations and assessment. So this is just, again, super important to making sure that as you jump into doing this auction, you really have a firm grasp on who your audience is, what type of items you can get, and then from there, what is a realistic net? If you go in and you think that you're going to raise $50,000 and you only end up walking away with $5,000, is that worth it? And again, for some, the answer may be yes, but you need to consider that within your organization, within the time and the effort that you're going to put into this. And then also, again, just having realistic expectations on who your audience is and what can they bid. The car sounds like a great idea, but if your audience is not a crowd that can bid on a car, then, be realistic with yourself. Don't put yourself in a tough scenario where you have a car and then it either doesn't even get someone to do the minimum bid, or it goes for a lot less than what you were hoping, or that is even worth that your cost in the car is. And then the final thing is to add a raffle. The thing about auctions is, even though you may have, let's say, 200 people engage with your auction, the odds are if you only have 40 winners or 40 items, you're going to have a max of 40 winners. Really, you're probably going to have about 30, because some of those people are going to win multiple items. And so you're going to have a lot of people that may have bid on an item but didn't actually give any money. And so a way to be able to capture their funds, some follow-up emails and just asking them to make a donation and to engage is a great way to try to capture that. But another thing that we like to do is add a raffle as well. So some people will know pretty early on whether or not they're going to win an item. It's not going to be down to the wire for them. They're going to know either one, they're not going to bid on items because the price is already too high, or the item they're bidding on has already been priced. Someone has outbid them and they're not going to continue bidding. But that person, when they made that first bid, had already agreed to that 25 or that 100 or even $500. And so if you can have a raffle option as well, especially we love to do really nice, like $3,000 to $5,000 trips that usually cost us about $3,000. And if you can have a raffle option, that's a great way for that person to be able to still apply those funds that they are already assigned and willing to donate, but now know that they're probably not going to win it on an item. As you do the raffle, consider pricing your ticket in a way that is going to be, of course, valuable for what the item is. So if it's a big ticket item, you don't want to do a $5 raffle ticket. I would venture away from doing any raffle tickets under $20, no matter what. I really think anyone can afford a $20 raffle ticket. And as long as the item is worth at least a few $100s, I think a $20 raffle ticket is valid. And consider creating an incentive for a price break if they buy a certain amount of raffle tickets. So what we did is we had an event where one ticket was $60, but if they got three, it was only $100. So we really ensured that we had a lot of people buying $100 worth of raffle tickets, because in their mind, they're not thinking this is only one ticket for $100. They're thinking this is a really good value because a normal ticket 60 and I'm getting three for 100. But in the grand scheme of things, a raffle ticket is just that. It's really nothing. It's just a raffle ticket. If everyone buys one ticket, that's the same if everyone buys three tickets. So from the impact on the raffle, it really didn't change anything, but it made people more willing to drop $100 on raffle tickets because they just thought the value was greater. And so we found that we had a lot of success with that. I think we raised about $8,000 to $9,000 just through that raffle for a 400-person event and doing that. Okay, so let's show now the online platforms. Again, go to our website, instituteofnet.com, and you'll see a drop-down menu, and then there's a place where it says blogs. We've wrote a blog on this, so if there's any taking notes or you have some questions, this is a good summary of what we talked about in this webinar. So I encourage you to go and check out that blog to be able to skim it or refer back to some of the things that we discussed. The other thing to look at is we have an article at the bottom you can click on, and it's got a list of various online platforms. Again, there's so many more out there. And so don't just go by off of that article, but use it as a good starting point to figure out what that looks like. But right now, I want to take this time to show you on 32auctions.com, and I'm going to pull up a demo here. 32auctions.com is a website that we have used before. It is something that we've had great success with. It's more of a budget item, so it's a lower priced service compared to some of the others, but it's definitely a website and a service that has worked well for our needs. And knowing a lot of the nonprofits we serve and the size that you guys are, I think this is going to be something that would be attractive for you as well. So I want to just give you just a couple minutes to show you the overview. If you haven't checked out an online auction platform as well, a lot of them are very similar in the functionalities and even the way that they look. So this is a great overall demonstration of how to use an online auction software. So again, this one is 32auctions.com. I've gone up here to demo auction. We're looking at a demo. You'll be able to see here, there's a home page. People can like various items. So just kind of, if you're familiar with eBay, there's a way that you can put it on a watch list where you haven't made a bid yet. But if the auction is open for, let's say, a week, then it allows you to be able to continue to keep an eye on it to see how people are bidding. And then right before the auction closes, you can go back and look to try to make a bid. Right here, this shows you the amount of the items you've placed bids on. We'll look at that in a second. The item list, so you can look at all the items. And then this is a great overall homepage that shows a leaderboard here. You can be able to put a total goal so people can see the goal on this demo is $5,000. So as people are bidding, they can see how much of the goal is being met. This is a great tool to try to encourage donations and, again, raffle sales. Going back to what I was talking to, if they know they're not going to win an item, they see this goal there, they can think, well, I can at least contribute to this goal. I was going to spend $200 anyway. Let me go buy $200 worth of raffle tickets or just make a $200 donation. So if we go here and we click on all items, this is the way it looks with the various items. You can identify some items as featured, which will keep them up at the top. You can also, I know I discussed categories. A lot of services allow you to tag different items in different categories. So especially this is helpful for larger auctions. If you have more than, let's say, 60 items, then you can go and just sort it by trips. You can sort it by gift cards, experiences, sports, memorabilia, whatever those items are that you want to make. And so this is a really helpful way to be able to see a picture on what the item is. Pictures are super important for an online auction. So as you guys are setting up your online auction to make it look like this, make sure that you have quality photography done. Just think to yourself as you do shopping online, which this is very similar to that. You want to see a picture and you want to see an accurate picture of it. So especially if it's something like this where it's a painting, if it's something that's more of a retail item, if you get jewelry, things of that nature, try to get a professional photographer, donate some time. We've had that before where they can take some product shots of the items and then you can leverage those to put on the background, something with a white background with just the items, seeing how this website is set up. The phone here is a great example of that. It goes together seamlessly. It looks great. And it makes the quality just pop that much more and seem a lot higher quality. If you're not a photographer and you take a picture that's got dim lighting and just doesn't look as good, no matter what the item is, it's just not going to be as attractive. If the item is a gift certificate, don't take a picture of the gift certificate and use that as your item. So again, right here, this is a car detailing as an example. This is a great picture. So don't have a picture of the car detailing gift certificate, but rather have something like this that is reflective of the actual item that the gift certificate is for. Dinner for two, this is another great one. This is a lot more attractive for someone than, again, just looking at a picture of a piece of paper. So you can go on these items. When someone clicks on an item, you can see right here where it says sold. I see Brian has another question about some buy it now for each item. There are ways to do buy it now. I'm not sure. I don't think right now these ones are set up for buy it now, but a lot of them will have it. I'm pretty sure this has that feature as well from thinking back to when we used it before. And so essentially it would have another option down here that allows you to click the buy it now option. If you go with the buy it now, make sure it's a price that's well above what you would have got if people were bidding on it. So, again, this is something that you want it to be, if it's the car option or a large ticket option, that's great, but make sure it's a very high price on that. if you think you're going to get action on the bidding, because the whole point of the bidding is driving the price up. And I see items consistently, although I don't plan on it, nonetheless, I do see items consistently go above and beyond the fair market value. I mean, it's crazy how many times I'll see a $100 gift card to a restaurant go for $120 or $140 or whatever it might be. Because again, people are doing this not just with the intent of getting an item, but also with the intent of giving to charity. So for them, they're willing to go a little bit above the value, knowing that that nonprofit is going to be receiving the funds from that. And so keep that in mind. And if you do a buy it now, another way to think of it is if you have a smaller item that you have a lot of options on, then that may be a great way to offer a lot of that item. And so think of this as more of a traditional retail option. Maybe it's a painting or something like that, and you have 10 of them. You can you either have a bidding option, so again, people can bid on it, but then you also can have a buy it now that may be a little bit more reasonable. And so the bidding is a way for someone to get a discount on it or try to get a more favorable price. But then let's say you have it's a $50 minimum bid that it starts out on, but you have a $300 buy it now option. Then you may be able to have someone that can win it for $120, which is what they can afford. But then you may have a few other people who just really like the painting, can afford $300 and want to give $300 to your charity anyway. This is another great use of the buy it now button. But as you look here with the card detailing, the value is $150. Next bid needs to be $110 or up. I'm currently the leading bidder. I'm going to go ahead and do a $150 bid. There's ways to do a proxy bid or an exact bid. So an exact bid, essentially, it'll just change the price to $150. A proxy bid would change it where if someone outbids me, then someone else can be able, then it automatically gives my bid right above them up to the $150 threshold. So this is a really great tool. Again, the whole point is to drive bids up for you to help you raise more money. This proxy bid is super helpful. I'm going to go ahead and do proxy bid and update my bid. Confirm your bid amount, 150, bid type proxy bid, submit bid. So now if someone comes in and bids on top of it, see it still says the next bid's 110 plus, but if they go, it'll keep driving my price up, which keeps me from having to sit here on the computer and watch people continue to outbid. I can see the bid history here. But rather I can go in and just know that up to this point, I'll be able to win it. So it automatically drives it up. The final thing about these online auction softwares is that they can do a great job with communication. So some have it where they'll give you text notifications. So if anytime someone outbids you, they'll shoot you a text message and let you know that. On top of that, they can also do emails. So if someone outbids you, you'll get an email on it to let you know that the price has continued to gone up, and it allows you to go and log back in and again, continue to drive the price up. All right, friends. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop there. If there's any questions that you have, please go ahead and feel free to do that. Give those in the Q&A box. I'm happy to answer those real quick. Appreciate Brian already with a couple questions. And like I said, feel free to shoot me an email, reach out on the website, and you can also, for those of you watching this later, feel free to ask questions as well via email, as well as check out the blog post, How to Do an Online Auction. We cover a lot of this, just not in as much detail. So it's a great place if you want to go back and see if you missed something, and check out some of those websites. We're happy to give you recommendations based on your specific needs. So that's one of the ways that you can reach out to us and that we can help. So with that, if we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the webinar here. We hope to have many more webinars over the next few weeks that are going to be more specific to immediate needs that nonprofits have. We're thinking a lot of nonprofits are thinking of ways to create revenue with their events being canceled. So we want to talk about online auctions. Our next webinar that we're going to talk about is how to communicate with your donors in the midst of not having a fundraising event. And so how can you be able to continue to have those conversations and to be able to make sure that they still make those gifts. Some people are great at making their annual gifts at an annual fundraising event. And so we want to help you think through how to communicate to them if the event's not happening, in a way that hopefully will encourage them to still make that gift this year if it's an economic ability for them to be able to give right now in this crazy economic time that we have. So be sure to tune into that. We'll put that on our social media. We'll shoot you an email about that. And then the final thing before we go, again, we do a giveaway for each of these webinars. For every one of you joining these, we're going to offer a free $15,000 event planning service for your organization or for an organization you'd like to gift this to. And that's going to be announced in the middle of May. So for any webinar that you watch between now and May, you'll be entered in a chance to win that, in which we will randomly draw a name for that. So every time you log into one of these, it's another entry for you and your odds go up. But on top of that, each one of these webinars, we offer a free 3-hour consulting that we love to offer on top to be able to continue to talk about this. The full value of that's a $300 value. Now, again, we do give discounts with nonprofits, but that's our undiscounted rate. And congrats to the winner on this webinar, which is Lynn Garms. Lynn and I have been emailing, actually, so that works really well, how she was picked for the consulting and the giveaway. So thank you all for being able to participate with us during this live event, for those of you watching this recorded, and we look forward to talking with you on many webinars to come. Have a great day.